Before we get into the details of Chapter 9, I'd like to show you an example of how your spending becomes somebody else's income, and something that we call the multiplier effect, which is where when one person spends money, another person gets more money, and they spend more money. So $1 spent can actually equal more than just $1 spent by one person, but several dollars spent by several people. Hoffberger, a Ford salesman in Tomcat, Virginia, a suburb of D.C., called up Littleton of Littleton Menswear and Haberdashery and said, "Good news, the new Fords have just come in, and I've put one aside for you and your wife." Littleton said, "I can't, Hoffberger. My wife and I are getting a divorce." "I'm sorry," Littleton said, "but I can't afford a new car this year. After I settle with my wife, I'll be lucky to buy a bicycle." Hoffberger hung up. His phone rang a few minutes later. "This is Bedcheck, the painter," the voice on the other end said. "When do you want us to start painting your house?" "I changed my mind," said Hoffberger. "I'm not going to paint the house." But I ordered the paint," Bedcheck said. "Why did you change your mind?" "Because Littleton is getting a divorce, and he can't afford a new car." That evening when Bedcheck came home, his wife said, "The new colored television set arrived from Gladstone's TV shop." "Take it back," Bedcheck told his wife. "Why?" she demanded. "Because Hoffberger isn't going to have his house painted now that the Littletons are getting a divorce." The next day, Mrs. Bedcheck dragged the TV set in its carton back to Gladstone. "We don't want it." Gladstone's face dropped. He immediately called his travel agent, Sandstorm. "You know that trip you had scheduled for me to the Virgin Islands?" "Right, the tickets are all written up." "Well, cancel it. I can't go. Bedcheck just sent back the color TV because Hoffberger didn't sell a car to Littleton because they're going to get a divorce, and she wants all his money." Sandstrom tore up the airline tickets and went over to see his banker, Gripsholm. "I can't pay back the loan this month because Gladstone isn't going to the Virgin Islands." Gripsholm was furious. When Rudemaker came in to borrow money for a new kitchen she needed for her restaurant, Gripson turned her down cold. "How can I loan you money when Sandstrom hasn't repaid the money he borrowed from me?" So Rudemaker called her contractor Eagleton and said, "You can't put in the new kitchen," and so Eagleton had to lay off 8 men. Meanwhile, Ford announced it was giving a rebate on its new models. Hoffberger called up Littleton immediately. "Good news," he said. "Even if you are getting a divorce, you can afford a car." "I'm not getting a divorce," Littleton said. "It was all a misunderstanding, and we've made up." "That's great," Hoffberger said. "Now you can buy that Ford." "No way," said Littleton. "My business has been so lousy, I don't know why I keep the doors open." "I didn't realize that," Hoffberger said. "Did you realize I haven't seen Bedcheck, Gladstone, Sandstrom, or Gripsholm, or Rudemaker, or Eagleton for more than a month? How can I stay in business if they don't patronize my store?" This is a fictitious example of how one person's spending becomes another person's income. So when one person may spend $1, the person who receives that dollar may save a portion of it and then spend the rest of that dollar someplace else. And then the person who receives that dollar will do the same, so there's a trickle-down effect. So $1 input into the economy could actually turn into $5, maybe $10, maybe $20 worth of additional purchases within the economy based upon people's spending of the money that they receive.